What if I told you that there is a way that you can scrape 1,000 leads for free using NA to End? It doesn't require any paid APIs. It's completely automated. The only thing you need to do is enter the types of leads that you want, the job titles, decision makers, and the location, okay? And this is a system that's very scalable because you can scrape 1,000 leads per day off LinkedIn. And if you do the math, that's 7,000 a week, okay? So if you scale it up, it's very exponential, right? And what's great about a system like this as well is that you can sell it to clients, right? The biggest problem most companies have is that they don't have enough leads, right? If most companies got anywhere between 5 to 10 leads per day, right? Good solid leads, they would never have any problem, right? You'd be running a $500,000 to $1 million a year business easily. I've seen this because I work with these companies, right? I used to run these companies, I work with these companies, and for the most part, they run out of cash, right? Because they don't have enough leads, they don't have enough customers, they have too much high churn. And this is an automation that solves that, okay? So without any further ado, I'm gonna dive right in. And before I do, I want you to do me a huge favor and give this video a thumbs up if you like it. But more importantly, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so. This automation is pretty straightforward because, like it says in the title, I'm not actually using any APIs, right? So there are no API calls, no paid API calls anyway, and there's no credits or tokens or anything like that to purchase, okay? So there's three main requirements. The first one is set up the Google Cloud and programmable search because this is a custom search, and I'll show you how to do that. Then we want to create a simple Google Sheets to save the leads. That's what I'm doing for this example on this demonstration, but you can connect it up to your HubSpot or any other CRM that you're using. And then the last requirement is just literally scrape, right? Go have fun. Because with a system like this, you can scrape up to 1,000 leads per day. Okay, so that's 7,000 leads per week. Completely free, completely automated. So do the math, right? You can either contact these leads yourselves, or you can basically sell them to companies, sell them to organizations, right? Just sell it as a package. So let me head over to NA10. This is where the automation is built. And it's triggered by a chat message. Okay, so you type in whatever you want to search, right? So is it founders? What's the industry, which country, etc., etc. Okay. Then it creates a couple of variables that we're going to need for the search later, and I'll explain that. And then this is the HTTP request. Okay, so it is an API call, but this is a free custom search. We're using Google API for this. And what's great about this system is that it's actually searching by using a dynamic variable, okay? The dynamic variable is the chat input, so whatever you type into the first node here. Then it's gonna basically grab all the API results. So we're gonna need things like name, title, LinkedIn URL, etc., like a description of the person, like a summary of their job, right? As per whatever's on LinkedIn. Because remember, we're scraping this off LinkedIn, right? Then there's a wait node here, and this is just basically to watch the rate limit, right? Because I don't want to get banned. I am using a Google API. It's a public API, and I'm doing it through my account, through my Google Cloud account, so I don't want to get banned, okay? Then there's a Google Sheets node, so we're going to update the Google Sheet, and I'll show you that before I run it. And basically, whatever it scrapes, it's just going to put it up onto this sheet, okay? And then the next thing here is basically going to do an iteration, and I'll explain that in the code node. And then the last step is an if node, and this is just a pagination step check, okay? So what that means is we are going to scrape the LinkedIn based on 10 results per page, okay? So you've got 1 to 10, right? Once it's done the first page, right? We don't want it to keep scraping the first page, right? What we're going to do is then to move on to the second page, and the third page, and the fourth page, and so on and so on. And every cycle, it should be a new set of results, okay? That's what this pagination check node here does. It will then basically check to make sure that we've done the first page, and then for the next run, we move on to the second page, and so on, okay? So this is the Google Sheet. I've just created a very, very basic sheet. You don't need to overcomplicate this at all. You just need some column headings like this, so name, title, URL. This is a LinkedIn URL. The description, and this is like a brief overview. You can call it summary, you can call it whatever, snippet. I think LinkedIn calls it snippet, or Google Search calls it snippet as a dynamic variable. And then you've got the image there, you've got the index. Right, so this is the first page. You can see the second set is results is the second. So the first set of 10 is the first page. The second set of 10 is the second page. And then if the results are there, then this is true. And this is all for the pagination and the iteration steps. Okay, so I'm going to delete this and then I'm going to run it just to make sure that it's actually working. And let me go back here. We'll just delete the results here, and then we can bring up a chat. So sometimes it does error out, like there's no response. Don't worry about that because this is in testing, so just type in again. But let's just say we want CEO, factoring, and then we'll do United. If I can spell United States, and leave it at that. And again, this could be anything, right? You type in whatever leads that you want, okay? So I'm gonna do a search on that, and then we'll do hide the search. So now it's going through the automation. So it's created the two variables I need. It's search using Google's API. It's got the results from the code node. So everything that we need for the Google Leads sheet. And then it's doing a 10-second wait just to watch the rate limit. It's updated the sheet. It's then iterating based on what we need. And then it's going back through the entire loop. So you can see that we're on the third stage here. I'm gonna pause it, okay? Because I think you get the picture. So we should have 30 leads here, okay? So let's have a look here. I don't think it's finished the final. Yeah, okay. So we should have 20 leads because I stopped it before we did the update lead sheet. So you can see here it's 20 items, right? If it was 30, this would say 30 items, and our next cycle would be on to 40. Okay, because I set it to scrape 10 leads per cycle. And you can see here that it's basically brought up everything that you could possibly want. There are sometimes some odd results like this. I mean, it's purely because we're using the custom search, right? The public search. So you are going to get a couple of misses here and there, but for the most part, it's very reliable actually, right? And ultimately it's dependent on your input, right? If you make the input a bit more detailed, it's going to make the output a lot better. Okay, so let's move on to the next step and build this puppy. So the first node that we want to trigger the automation is just a chat trigger. So just grab that one there, and you can set that up however way you want. Let's move this over here. The second one is edit fields, okay? Because we're gonna create two fields, variables, and we're gonna use them later in the flow, okay? So the first one is, let me just come up here. The first one is start index. They're both numbers. And the start index will start at 1. So that's page 1, the first number in the search, which is the first search result, okay? And then the second one is max results. So basically we're telling it to stop at 10. And that means that we'll scrape 10 results on the first run, okay? And the reason I've done it like this is because I think there's a limit of like 100 runs that you can do per day on the Google search, right? Before you have exceeded your quota, okay? So I've set it at 10 per run. So that means that we can actually scrape 1,000 results, 1,000 leads per day with this system, okay? So let me just grab this. I'm gonna paste this here. We're gonna change this to number and set this to 1. And then the other one is called max results. Change this to number. And then we're gonna basically call this one set fields. So we're gonna use these later in the flow, okay? So that one's done. And then the next one we want is the HTTP request. So this is where we're gonna scrape and search. We're gonna search these keywords and we're gonna get the keywords, okay? So it's not really scraping, it's using the API. Scraping would be something like Amplify, right? Which is what I normally do. But for this, we don't need any paid APIs, okay? This is just a public API that's freely available. And like I said, you get 1,000 searches per day on the free tier, okay? So let me just open this up because there's a couple of things that I need from here. So let's just wait for this to load. And then the first thing I'm gonna grab is this here. So let me just grab this. Code here. And then I'm gonna paste it inside of an HTTP request node. Okay, and then we're gonna need query parameters. Okay, so the first one we need is start. So all this code does, right? This little JavaScript is, it basically identifies the search index, right? So it just makes sure that you've started and then you finished, okay? Because the last thing we want is to scrape the same results over and over again, okay? Because that doesn't help you, right? You want to scrape new results every time, right? So that's going to be page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, and so on, right? So again, it's green, which means it's worked. It's referencing the set limits node, and it's referencing a future node, okay, which is called iteration. So I'm gonna paste this in here, and the parameter name is start, okay, as you can see here. And this is just syntax inside of Google, right? It's not something that I've assigned. This is just how you call it, okay? So just change this to expression. It's red because I haven't run any of the modules. So let's add another parameter, okay? And the next one is going to be so you can see here, right? This is taken whatever I typed into the chat input on the first trio. Okay, so I put in C, manufacturing, United States, and then I've added like an identifier on the end, which is site with the colon, linkedin.com. Okay, and that's to tell it that basically we want to search LinkedIn. Okay, so I'm gonna grab this, and it's green, which means it's worked. So that's always good. And then what do I call this one? This is called Q. Okay. So again, this is just syntax that's required inside of Google with the APIs, especially with this custom search, right? Then the next thing we need is the key. So this is just the API key, and I'll show you how to get that shortly. Let me just put this in here. So this is from your Google Cloud, okay? And then the last one is CX, okay? So CX is basically the programmable search engine that I mentioned at the beginning, okay? And you're gonna need that because this is a non-API, like a non-paid search solution. That's why you have to set these up, and I'll show you how to get that in a sec. Okay, so that's all set up. There's nothing else we need here. I'm gonna call this one search keywords, and I'll show you where you can get your key, your search key, and your API, okay? So let's just save that. So first thing you want to do is head over to Google Cloud. It's completely free to sign up, so just use a Gmail account. And let's wait for this load. So if you haven't done this before, if you haven't used an API from Google Cloud, the first thing you want to do is head over to here and create a project. Okay, so if you haven't created a project, it'll prompt you to create a new project, okay? I've created a few, so I'm just gonna use one that I've basically created for another video in the past. And then what you want to do is head over to API and services, okay? And you can call the project whatever you want to call it, right? It doesn't really matter. Then you want to go to credentials, and then you want to create a credential, but you want to create the API key, okay? So create an API key. Just wait for this load. And then this is the key that you want to basically copy, okay? And then you're going to paste that into this field here, right? So that's the Google Cloud done. The next thing you need to do is you need to search for something called the custom API, okay? Custom search API. So go to the search bar, do a search for it. It's this one here, click on it, and then you need to enable this, okay? Because I've already enabled it because I'm already using the search, right, to show you this. But it will say enable here, enable it, wait a couple of seconds, and then it will just say API enabled. That's when you know it's worked. This is the search API that we're going to use, right? So far, so good. And then the second part is the CX, which is, if you remember from my Excel drawer, this is the programmable search engine. Okay, so if you head over to programmablesearchengine.google.com, just sign in again with your Gmail. There's going to be empty. I mean, I've already done it already because I needed a search engine for this demo. But if you click on add, right, it'll take you to create a new search engine. Okay, so the only thing you need to do here is just search the entire web, because then you can reuse this. You can reuse this for other types of searches, right? It's not limited to LinkedIn. And then the other thing you need to do is just tick the I'm not a robot, right? Give it a name, and then you can then create it, okay? And then once you've created it, let me just go inside of here. There should be a CX, okay? And here it is. This is the CX code that you need, right? So the header is CX, the value, the name, and then the actual code is this F, long string here with numbers and letters. It's alphanumeric, right? And that's what I've taken for this thing here. You can find it in here, or it's in the URL as well. If you click here, right, this last bit here is the same thing. Just grab that, and it's worked. Okay, once you've done that, and then just save that, test it, and you're good to go. Okay, so the next module, if I go back to the original, and I don't know why my Mac is so hasn't been restarted for a few weeks. But I'll definitely restart it before the next video. So let me just come out of this. The next thing I want to do is we need a code node because we need to get the API results, right? What that means is we need to get the title, the name, the LinkedIn URL, etc., etc. Okay, so this is the code node. Let me grab the JavaScript from here because it's something I've created. You don't need to know too much about this. All it is doing in the most basic sense is that it's basically getting, if I convert it to JSON, it will make more sense, right? So these are like values, right? These are fields. These are dynamic variables, right? And so we need to extract this. We need to extract these values and make it more meaningful, right? Because this JavaScript here, this JSON is not usable, right? It's not usable, presentable. We can't use this and then save it into the Google Sheet, right? So what I need to do is I need to basically take all this data, process it into this output. So we've got name, title, link. They call it snippet, right? Which is what Google calls it, right? I believe it's Google that calls it this. And then basically we're assigning it as a variable, right? So we're assigning the name as name, title, link, which is the URL inside of LinkedIn. And you've got the image, which should be their profile picture, if they have one. You've got a start index and you've got the results, which is what we set up earlier, okay? So let me just grab this. You don't need to spend too much time on it. If you're not familiar with programming languages, don't worry about it. It's just something that we need to basically extract the data, right? Because remember, we are doing this with a manual, although it's automated, right? We're not using any specific tools to do this, right? If you're using something like Apify, this information, this data set would already be, you can extract it with a simple HTTP request, okay? But with a system like this, you're gonna need to create some code. So what do I call this one? I called it get API results. Let's go there. Let's call it that. And set it to run once for all items. Okay, and remember to test step. So I'm gonna come out this one. And the next one is just a simple wait node. Okay, and I've set it for 10 seconds. And that's because I just want to make sure that I'm not too aggressive, right? You do get like, I think 100 cycles per day, but you don't want to be too aggressive because you're going to get banned, right? Your IP and everything else is just going to get banned. You're going to get blacklisted, and you don't want that, right? Because this is a very lucrative system if you use it correctly, right? Because you can get 7,000 leads for free every single week. Right, so this one I've set it to 10, which is fine. And then what I call this one, watch rate limit. So I'm going to change this to watch rate limit. The next node that we need is the update lead sheet. So let's just go ahead and create this. So I'm going to go back here into the build, just bring up Google Sheets, and it's just an append row in sheet, okay? So connect up to the correct sheet. So for me, this is the LinkedIn scraper no APIs. I'm going to select sheet 1 because I haven't renamed it. And then it's going to basically map the columns, right? And these are just columns from inside of the sheet. So what I need to do is whatever has been extracted from the get, right, from the code node module, I need to map it into here, okay? So I'm just going to do that from this to show you. It's easier if I do it here. And just grab this. So this is the output, which it's worked, and these are all green, so it's pulled in the correct fields, right? So the first one is JSON name, second one is JSON title, right? Third one is JSON link. The description is the JSON snippet, so that's this one here from the watch rate limit, okay? Or you can get it from here, from the get API results. It doesn't really matter, right? It's the same data. Then for the image, you want to get the image, so just drag and drop it, right? That's what you need to do. And then for the index, you just want the start index, which is the variable that we've created, and the second one is has more results. Okay, and we need both of these because this is going to help us with the iteration pagination cycles. Okay, I'm not going to drag this over because my machine is really slow, but yeah, basically that's what you need to do. Just drag it over into the corresponding field inside of here, and then you know it's worked, right? Because you'll have data inside of the sheet. So I ran this twice, right? So I've got 20, I should have 20 rows here with all the details. You can see here, it's all there, right? So we can skip this one, right? And I'll definitely make sure to restart my Mac before the next one. I think it's done some kind of update overnight or something, so I just need to give it a restart, okay? Then the next node that we need is an iteration node. And if I go inside of here, all this is doing, right, is basically the code inside of this. Let me just open this up a little bit to make it bigger. It's just basically starting with a value, right? And that's all you need to know. So all it's doing is it's just checking to see if the results have been scraped. That's all it's doing, right? And it's using the two variables that we've created, the start index and the has more results. If the has more results is false, then we know that we need to go back and scrape those results, okay? That's all you need to know with this code here. So I'm gonna copy this and paste it into a new code module. I've just called it iteration. But it's probably not the right word for it, to be honest with you. This is probably like a check. Something like a check, right? To see if it's done it, if it's scraped and the results are true. Something like that. I've just called it iteration because I didn't know what else to call it, to be honest with you. But yeah, let's just call it, let's just bring up another node, call it the same. But again, call it something that's a bit more meaningful for you, if it makes more sense. And then I'm gonna remove this because we don't need this. I'm gonna paste that. Remember the test step. And then the last one is the if, right? So we just did an if node. And for this, I'm gonna take it out the value from here because this will show you how it works. And this is just a pagination check. Okay, pagination just means you move on to the next page. That's all it means, right? So for this, I've taken the continue loop from the iteration node, right? And so if the scrape has been successful, then this will come back as true, right? And that just tells the automation that move on to the next cycle, move on to the next page, the next set of 10 results, right? So all you want to do is grab the continue loop field, right? Because we've created this inside of iteration and it must equal true. Okay, and this is basically this field here, the results field. That's all it is. As long as this column is true, it will just go on to the next cycle, the next page, and then scrape the results. Okay, so I'm gonna grab this and it's a string. So just make sure that this is set to string equal to, which it should be by default, but if it's not, just double check that. And if you change it to expression, you should see that this one changes the expression. If it's green, you know it's worked, right? Like this one, and then you've got basically an output here to tell you that. So if it's true, it'll come out of the true branch. If it's false, it will stop. So if I go back to the original automation, if I just come out of this, I'll show you what that looks like. If I zoom in and just move it over a little bit, you can see that it's the only condition I'm concerned with is true. If it's false, the automation will stop, right? It's dead. It doesn't matter, right? But in most instances, it'll be true. And if it is true, then it loops back into search keywords, right? And then we do the next page, and then we do the next page, and the next page, and so on and so on and so forth, right? Depending on how many times you want to do this, you can set that up in the set fields. So let's just do a pagination check rename. So pagination check. And I don't think I did anything else in this one. Let me just double check. Yeah, so convert types are required. I'm gonna turn that on. And then the last thing you want to do is just zoom out a little bit. Let's move this up so you can see it, and then grab the true root and then move it all the way around here and connect it up to search keywords. Okay, and that's it. That's the automation done. This is what it should look like, okay? And you know it's worked because you're gonna have a ton of leads here. And remember guys, you can sell this, right? You can sell this to clients, you can sell this as a service, you can sell leads in batches, right? Because it doesn't take long to do 1,000, right? And you can get multiple API keys, by the way. So if you've got multiple Gmail accounts, right? You can get a different API key for the scrape here. So you can come out of this, you can change the API key if you wanted to, right? Into the search keywords, and then do another 1,000. So there's nothing stopping you from doing more than 1,000. It's just you can't do it from the same Google Console. So heading back to the Excel drawer, we've set up the Google Cloud and the programmable search. We've created a simple Google Sheets to save the leads, and we can scrape. Okay, so thank you for watching this video. Your support means the world to me. I've had so many great comments. people cheering me on, telling me that the content is amazing. So thank you for that. Any other feedback is most welcome. If you want me to tackle any other types of projects, I've got some really massive automations coming, right? I just need time to kind of sit down, build it, and obviously record it and edit the videos, because I do have, I do run an agency, so I do have client work as well that needs to be done. But I've got some really cool automations coming up, guys. So if you haven't done so, please subscribe to the channel. Please turn the notification sign on, because that will tell you, YouTube will send you a notification on your phone or your desktop when a new video is dropped. Okay, so thank you so much for paying attention and making it this far, and I'll definitely see you on the next video. Take care.